Hey Axis and Allies players, this is a good captain. Welcome to another video on Axis and Allies Classic. I managed to get in 4 more Classic games here in 2019, and these really helped sharpen up my presentation, which I'm going to go through with you right now. I'm going to be using a combination of PowerPoint slides and frames from various games that I played online to help prove or illustrate my point. So before we get into the content, I think there's a distinction that needs to be made between broken and imbalanced. Now, balanced to me implies that the game is functional or not functional by degrees. So perhaps one side has slightly too many forces in a slightly better position or positions, or has a slightly stronger economy. This is something that would be an imbalance. Something that breaks a game is something that can be demonstrated and repeated to reliable certainty over and over again, and it usually comes in the form of something that is like a bug, or it seems like a bug in the game. So is Axis and Allies Classic broken? The answer is yes, Classic is broken. So who does it favor? Favors the Allies, and of course, the next natural question we want to ask is, how is it broken? And prove it. Well, it is broken, and after these last 4 games, I'm sure of that now. But before my detractors start rubbing their hands in glee, let me finish, okay? Axis and Allies Classic is broken in 3 ways. I call them the 3 silver bullets. I call them this because you only need 1 to kill this game. They're all kind of bugs, and there is essentially 1 for each power, although arguably the last one can be shared by both Western allies. So the first silver bullet, the first thing that can be performed by the allies that has a high probability, and by high probability I mean, at least 75 to 85% chance of ending in an allied victory, so long as the allied player knows what they're doing. Actually, I'll take a quick pause and say by that, I mean to say that these silver bullets only work if you are like a 6 or 7 level out of 10 experience with Axis and Allies Classic at least. In other words, you really need to know how to play the game in general, but if you perform these, you're going to cause a much more experienced player much grief, at the very least. So the first one is Russia's first turn attack. The turn 1 attack in Ukraine SSR, which I have made an entire video about on my channel here, Russia Restricted, Why You Need It, is available. Just go check it out if you want to hear about why this is and how to do it and why it's so devastating. I'm not going to go over it in this video. So this video will be spent on discussing the next 2 silver bullets, and then we will conclude this video, and at the same time of this video's release, I will be releasing my response to these silver bullets, my attempt at repairing them. So please, if you're checking out this video, go check out that one to hear the other side of the coin. The second silver bullet is the 2 industrial complex build. On UK's first turn, there is just enough cash to build 2 industrial complexes. And if you build these and you place them in South Africa and India, you can break the game. So this is how that would look at the end of Britain's turn 1. This is a game that I played online against one of my latest opponents, and he actually took the Axis, no bid, with Russia Restricted. So I was able for the first time to employ the British strategy that I recommended in my Axis and Allies Classic 10-part series video. And as you can see here, I followed it to a T for the most part, building 2 industries. Okay. This creates a bulwark against the Japanese and a bulwark against the German expansion into Africa. but most importantly, it provides a very strong mid-game option in the middle of the board. This is the classic equivalent of the Middle Earth strategy of 1940, or global. So I'm going to take a quick minute and discuss this strategy. The primary goal of doing this is to contain Axis expansion, mostly against Japan, in Asia, of course. But, if Germany rolls hot in Africa, it's a measure to prevent them from doing any further damage by taking a 2-point objective in South Africa and pushing them back and then kicking them out eventually anyway. So this, in the early to mid-game, causes what I call the stillbirth of the Axis powers. They're not able to spin up and get their IPCs high enough to compete with the Allies, thereby assuring that the Allies, with their economic advantage, will smother both of these powers by the mid to end game. And in the middle of the game, what's the point of this South Africa industry? Everyone knows the India industry can be advantageous, but what's the point of South Africa? This is going to be wasted after the Germans are booted. That's really not the best way to think about it. The best way to think about this is support for India in the mid-game. In other words, you can build fighters out of here and fly them out in one turn, as opposed to building them in the United Kingdom, in which case it takes 2 turns if you fly into Karelia or the Caucasus. Or you can do basically what I did with it in this game. This is turn 1. This is going to be turn 7. So by turn 7, I'd built up a pretty respectable naval force, and you can see that just by building 3 infantry or 2 infantry and a tank per turn, not only do we clean out Africa, but we now have something to prevent the Japanese from even coming into this continent, into the African continent, and they're stymied in India, of course. So you can see they're not able to get very deep into Asia. Okay, this is the end of British turn 7, so Japan's about to go, so it's not the most in favor, the most favorable looking position for the Japanese. At the end of their next turn, I believe they have all 3 of these territories, but we're able to kind of swap back and forth for these 3. This is sort of the no man's land, with the line in the sand that got drawn. Eventually, it forces the Japanese to make an attack on India that's not to their advantage. And, something like 80 to 85% of the time, they'll lose, or just whatever's left will be easily destroyed by a counterattacking Allied force. Okay, so this is the 2 industry strategy. Seems to be just as efficacious as Russia's first turn attack or this 3rd silver bullet, which we're going to get into right now. The 3rd one is, like I said, available primarily to the USA, but the UK can involve itself in it to its heart's content. It is actually an old strategy, one that I first saw on the forums, although it did come up in my playgroup a few times. For some reason, we never pursued it, but it involves taking the neutral nation of Spain, and it's called Spanish Harlem. It actually has a name. Been around for a while. This is actually, to me, it's a little more near and dear to my heart than this UK2 industrial complex build, because it prevents Germany from being able to waltz. And if you wanted to check out what I mean by waltz, go ahead and check out my video here called Waltzing in Sunny Skies. Build infantry. This is a helpful video for understanding what options the Germans and the Japanese have in the mid-game. But the waltz is important to keeping pressure on Russia, and it gives Germany something to do instead of just turtling up. Doing the Spanish Harlem removes the waltz from the German arsenal. So here we have a turn 4 incursion by the British into Spain. The Germans already could see this coming, and the reason they could, more or less, is because I told my opponent that I was going to do this with him. So actually, I'll take a quick second and give a shout out to Mr. Eric Wool. At least that's his handle name on the forum. Really probably the best, all-around best player I've played, and I've played some really stand-up fellas on the forum. So thank you. But yeah, even when I declared before the game that I was going to use Spanish Harlem, there was really nothing Germany could do. So what's going to happen here is Japan will take its turn, but then the USA will come in with 8 troops in a tank, making this untenable. And forget what I did with the US fighter. It probably went in there as well. This fighter could go in there. Russian fighters can go in there if they want to during the non-combat movement phase as well. So yeah, once these Allied units are situated in Spain, the 5 transport bridge can just keep bridging across units of UK or USA or both. This eventually leads to, well, the Germans never have a chance at messing with Russians on the Eastern Front, and in fact the Russians are basically free to either defend themselves against the Japanese or attack Germany. So these are the 3 silver bullets that break Axis and Allies. Classic, Milton Bradley's version, 2nd edition, just using the out-of-box rules with that, and then again, not talking about using any of the optional rules in the back. I just wanted to go over that in this video because in the next video, I'll be discussing what's available inside the rulebook to combat these buggy little tricks that break the game, and what to do with the last one because, frankly, there's not much in way of rules out of box that can stop this from happening. So thank you for watching this. All the best from the good captain, and bye-bye.